Have you tried using AI image generators? It tends to be the big topic nowadays, but particularly what really stands out right now is the inconsistency of the results that you get. Sometimes you go and you type the prompt in, you feel amazing about it, but next thing you know, your generation that comes out is not what you were expecting whatsoever. And then time and time again, you use the same prompt and you tend to get some lacking results. That changes today, and it's not going to happen anymore. I have taken the time to create an AI-driven character design sheet that shows all of the mandatory elements that you would need to be able to have consistent, realistic results every single time. I've spent quite a bit of time now on this YouTube channel experimenting with artificial intelligence in order to generate imagery for characters of the lore that's associated to my YouTube channel on here. So without further ado, let's dive into the sheet and go through the explanation one by one for each of these elements. All right, now similar to other sheets that I have created in the past now, I'm going to have this similar layout where in the beginning, it's going to showcase an introduction or an explanation as to what you're going to find throughout this document. Out of this part here from the top is the fact that some of these somewhere in here along the lines are going to be listed as high priority for some of these elements, as you see it within this different color scheme down below. Within using certain AI generated tools, you have a limit as to how many words and characters that you can fit in these prompts. So that's why I have designed through which ones I would categorize as a higher priority than the others, meaning these are generally speaking almost mandatory as to getting consistent character results when you're trying to develop some form of imagery. Now, generally speaking, if you stop by on this video, you probably already have an idea of what type of character that you want to create, whether it resembles yourself or anything else. But if you don't, then I actually created a friend portfolio activity that you could go back and view from previous videos, and that will give you an idea that you could create a character, an AI image character of this reality character portfolio for yourself. Lastly, towards the end of this, there's actually a bonus section that is going to have experimental results that I've used for myself when creating the character of Avant Zendelga for the AveyaZ lore. And for those of you who do not know, Avant Zendelga is the realistic character for me in a fantasy storytelling. So let's go ahead and start here right from the top. And then we have the first section here, and that's going to be identity and naming. These boxes are going to be broken down by the element or the factor that's going to be taking place here, and then also the description of what is going to be inclusive of that piece. So within the identity and naming category, we're going to have elements that establish this character's designation. And judging by the first part here, we have three particular elements that are going to be categorized as a high priority. The first one being the name and the alias, the name that is associated to the character. Because if you think about it, everything that exists within a character all stems back from the name. If you were to use some kind of search log, you would start with the name of the individual, and then everything else would actually bring up within the stats, what that person does, the attributes of the character. Everything else comes in afterwards. So if you already started with a name, then you have what their role or archetype is. Generally speaking, everything that I've created here is going to be a gamified variation, so we're continuing that factor within this as well. The character's core function. Think more along the lines of, is this person the protagonist? Is this person going to be the antagonist? Is this person going to be whatever it may be? That was where we need to establish that, because that's going to help portray the overall appearance that comes in later on. Up next, occupation status. Very similar to the role in the archetype, but this is going to be more along the lines of a social standing if you wanted to think of it something different. So I would actually go ahead and utilize the character that I've already created before for myself and show the distinction between these two. Avant Zendelga is, by occupational status, he is the Prince of the Chaos Realm, but his class type is the Ravager or the Bladezerker. Then we get down to the last part of the first section here, and that is going to be the age and species, which again, this is another high priority task. The reason being is because this will help showcase whether or not this person should be if this is an older individual, you can tell by the signs of aging within the individual based on their appearance. But then also when you get into that otherworldly aspect, age could generally not be associated to the overall appearance. And that is a hidden detail that can be added on to the character as well. Because traditionally, if we're thinking about ancient elves, most of the time when you think of otherworldly stories that involve elves, they tend to be incredibly massive, gigantic age numbers of within the thousands, but yet they look like regular adults. So now let's get on to section 2, and that is world building. This is going to be the backstory and what is inclusive of the environment. So now we're going to dive into the aspects of designated locations, the overall backstory. This is going to be particularly highlighting, say, for example, where this person lives. Where does this character live? Or meanwhile, if I was trying to take a character portrait, what do I want that character to be portraited from? Maybe the background of that character portrait is going to showcase that particular location. The background and history. This is going to showcase a significance as to helping the AI understand who this person is based off of previous experience. Because you've certainly heard the old expression where you are what you've been through, or people are crafted based off the experiences within themselves. The same can be said when developing the image that is presented for a character. Now we're in the next part of the universe or genre. So this is where, what is the overall world concept of where this character exists in? Think as far as the examples of what would exist in a movie or film as well if you need to. Is this a sci-fi related film, or is this going to have some type of steampunk or futuristic cyber-esque to it? And if you're unsure ultimately of what type of world you want to establish this character in, that's a great starting point as well, because when you understand what the environment of the situation is where this character is existing, then you can start recreating every other aspect after that fact. What is this character's name? Does it mix with the world that exists? What does this character do? What is this character striving to do? And everything else will continue to build off that. And then once you understand who the character is, why they do what they do, then understandably so, the next thing that comes into play is you develop the overall appearance of who that person is. And if you absolutely need to, start off with a reference to an existing world of something that truly inspires you. And that reference is going to be utilized to better create it as an inspiration. We're not trying to steal the ideas of what already exists. We're trying to build off them so that you can then get a little bit creative and start implementing things in your own way. Once you understand the overall aspect of world building and where this character is placed within themselves in this world, then you can start building the key relationships that this person is going to have. And this particular thing is going to be highlighted more in the very next section towards the end of that, when we start to discuss more about props, additional props or sacred items that are presented within this character as well. Now let's go ahead and get on to the third section here, and this is going to be the overall physical appearance, and probably one of the more important aspects of this entire thing, because we're talking about imagery here. We really want the character to outshine everything else. If you want a character to outshine everything as a whole, then you need this person to be spot on in terms of the overall appearance. And this is where getting details is going to be incredibly making the difference here. A couple more aspects here, and this is going to have 3 particular high priority aspects here as well. We're going to start with the most important piece of this third section, and that is going to be the general appearance statement. Why would you think that how does this come into play when it's just a singular statement, right? You would think, I don't really see how one statement could truly make the difference. It absolutely does. The reason is because once you have that general appearance statement settled in, now the AI is trying to understand that if for whatever reason that in the rest of the creation for this character, something does not align with that general statement, now it's beginning to be able to understand more that everything else needs to align with that statement. If it doesn't, then it's not going to exist. The example that I presented here was a hulking giant shrouded by darkness who imposes fear with his dark red eyes from a distance. There could be a lot of things that you can imagine from that statement alone. When I read that statement, I'm not going to get some tiny individual that has no lurking presence whatsoever, right? It's the opposite of presenting the information of what you want. This is more of helping you present the information of what you don't want. Because if it's not associated with the statement, you're not going to get it. Onward to the details. Onward to the details. Detailed appearance specifics. Height, generally speaking, you're not going to determine too much on height when it comes to just an image. Now, but overall, an image has 1,000 words attached to it. And that's where you really get creative here. When we wanted to discuss what the type of build of this character is going to have. And now I'm actually going to go ahead and open up a couple build types that I can think of off the top of my head. For the sake of helping all of you, it'll just make it easier for you to be able to be like, okay, now I understand what type of builds that would better exemplify a descriptive manner. Let's think of the more obvious ones off the top of my head. Is this person jacked? Is this person muscular? Is this person going to be what type of body shape? You have the hourglass figure. Other examples could include maybe this person does not have any physical resemblance to themselves whatsoever, or is the opposite of physically imposing, and they're scrawny. Are there going to be any unique physical features about this character? Are they going to have any tattoos, scarring? Scars could include that this person has a deceptive past behind them. But overall, generally speaking, this is helping shape the appearance of the character. From top to bottom, if I were to go ahead and outline a character, this is the part that it's going to showcase the most. Then you get into the next category of the clothing and the attire. Within this world that you painted here for your character, what is this person going to be wearing? Because typically it's going to resemble back to the world, to the class type, and also to the title that it's associated with the character. Something that I like to note here as well is that I love to add additional layering to a character in this part here in particular. There could be multiple layers of tops that they are wearing, and that could further become inclusive to their class as well. The example that I provided here was a well-worn leather trench coat built for a warlord in gleaming silver armor. A lot of imagery that you could just position within your mind right there, and that was just from one sentence. I want to be able to train you to become smarter with your writing so that less means more. The more descriptive you can get within a single sentence, the less that you're going to need within the entirety of your prompt. Diving back to that key relationships part from the previous section, now we get to the signature items and props. So this could be a particular item that could be associated to a designated relationship the character has. These signature items and props are going to have an association with symbolism that relies to the character. When you have someone that has that dramatic appeal from what they're wearing alone, then the signature prop that they have associated to the character as well is going to be that additional highlight that really forms the last pieces together. Now let's break it down and continue on here to the second last main part of this AI-driven character design sheet, and that is going to be section 4, the personality and behavior. AI has a way of predetermining how a character can look appearance-wise based off of the attributes of character. That's why this is really important. Because when you think about it, when you define how a character speaks and acts, imagery can already become available of how that person looks based off of those things alone. So that's how you get down to the character's attributes and the motivations and goals as these high priorities. Is this character going to be somebody who is driven for excellence, driven for success? Is this going to be a character who has struggled for their entire lives and the last thing they're trying to do is just maintain themselves? The majority of the time, the character's attributes will often match along with their motivations and goals. Someone who is going to have a strong desire for finding peace and solitude within their lives as their goal is going to have a large character sense of resolve within them. Other aspects that can come into play when developing these characters is going to be their dialogue or style and voice of how this character speaks. In general, is this person going to be a royal of some type, or is this going to be a commoner? These minor aspects can paint the overall world building aspect that you've already started to build from the beginning. The character's strengths and flaws. What are the qualities of this character? And you can highlight these with how this character looks. Lastly, within the fourth section here, you're going to have your current mood and disposition. What is the overall creation of this scene that you want to be able to portray within this character? And we can also pinpoint that to the posing or the stance of what you're trying to get for this character as well. Because remember, we're not creating a video here, you're creating an image. And whatever this character is doing within that image can be associated with the mood and the overall environment that this character exists in. Now we get to the final and fifth section of the main part of this AI-driven character sheet, and that is the artistic and technical basis. This is going to paint the picture. So think about what type of style that you want to have associated to this image. Typically on this channel with the characters that I have created and showcased, I follow the anime style, but it's going to be a more high fidelity, modern type style. I want it to look clean and have a very colorful aesthetic to it. In a fantasy world, the sky is the limit as to how you want it to appear. Once you have established the art style that you want to have for your character and then the overall world building, then you can get to the last artistic components of this, and that is going to be your composition and framing. This is the overall view of how your image is going to be. So imagine, where do you want to have that camera pointed or zooming in or zooming out from whatever part of this character you want to highlight. The color scheme. There's a lot of different photography viewpoints that you can be associated with these character shots, and I already presented a couple of them here. For example, the one that I use for my background now, the one right there, that is a dramatic close-up where you're getting more of that top end approach of the character. Other instances that I have utilized for myself would be like a half body shot, which is very similar to a medium shot, but a medium shot is more designated from a knees up approach. Meanwhile, a half body shot would be more around waistline or just above waistline and up approach. Other aspects, if you're not particularly going for a portrait view like you would be in a professional setting, that is more of a just getting a shot of what your face is, then you could consider other elements like the bird's eye view or eye level view if you're trying to get more of other different viewpoint approaches that could be from the side or even from, say, other degree angles, and getting specific with those degree angles as well. Overall, definitely what I've noticed is what can make and break from the beginnings of establishing a character is the art style and what type of viewpoint that you want to have. Because you can have everything else that it looks really good, but then you're just missing that last piece that really highlights what you're looking for, and it could just be the viewpoint. As I stated before, with the dramatic close-up that I have over here, that's where you can start getting along the lines of the shadowing and painting the overall mood, which is already associated with the world building and the location of where the character is. But if you wanted to get a little bit more specific, you could ask for cinematic lighting or dramatic shadows. And all that does is just allow for more contrast to the character. It brings more of a breath of life to the background. Then the last element to section 5 in this character design sheet, you're going to have a specific action or pose. I provided the example here of standing confidently, which is what I use with both of the protagonists of the story. I always use confident posture. That gets you more of that serious tone, but doesn't have to be a negative connotation attached to it. Or also you get a lot more intuitive with what's going on in the image, and you could actually give it an action related image. So maybe this person is wielding a weapon of some kind and you're catching them within the mid stride of it. I haven't particularly used this one yet, but the more I've thought about it, the more I realize that there is definitely opportunity in that one. Because most of the time with the characters that I've created, generally what I do is I create the character first, then when I create the gear that's associated to the character after the fact, and I combine the two aspects together. But you could certainly do both if you do it ahead of time. Tip that I will say, as I have gone through and experimented with so many different pieces of creating characters, is that be sure to use strong descriptive adjectives and consistent terminology throughout your prompt. So if you're really trying to hit home with something that's just not showing up time and time again, or it's just not consistently showing up within your drafts, it can really help the AI with generating the image that you're looking for to not just say it once, but say it a couple times. And remember that when you are creating images using artificial intelligence, mistakes are going to be made. Generally speaking, it's really hard to get a perfect image right from the get-go. Not saying that it's not possible, because I have done that and it feels amazing when it happens. But being able to recognize that just because it failed the first time doesn't mean it actually wasn't a bad prompt. Doesn't mean it was a bad prompt. Try it again a couple more times, and then when you realize that there's a common issue that is continuously occurring, take a step back, change the prompt, fix that issue that you're seeing on repeat, and then try again. As you continue to experiment, you're going to get better with it. Now I'm going to go ahead and showcase a couple of applied concepts that I've already utilized when I was creating Avant Zendelga, that is the character that was portrayed as me. And this is a short 2-part bonus section. It's going to focus on what you find in fantasy storytelling, as that is the big showcase of what this channel is about. So bonus section 1, we have the focus on power and aesthetics. This is going to be creating unique abilities and stylistic formats when it comes to fantasy characters. Aspect number 1, we have power or signature aura. This is going to be the visual manifestation of a character's power. In the case of what I implemented, I showcase a lot about magical energy being a living embodiment on the character. And before I continue any further, just in case there's any of you who haven't seen who Avant Zendelga is, let me go ahead and pull that up. Here we go. In a fantasy world for a character that resembles me, I put a lot of work into this one and refining each and every particular detail, from the weapons that he wields in both arms to the overall outfit of what this character showcases. And also you can see the radiating mana or energy that is coming off of the weapons as well, which is a awesome characteristic to really implement. And the more that you attach to these applied sections, the more you're going to get that part out. There you go. That's Avant. Now we're going back into here. Let's talk about the application of the power in the particular aura. In this case, I've actually detailed out prompts that I utilized when I was creating the character. The violent red crackled volcanic magical mana as if erupting around the axe Allurvan, and the blazing purple pink ethereal energized mana around the sword Zerun. That sentence structure alone paints the picture of the radiating mana around his weapons. Aspect number 2, so you start getting into the details of his weapons. So you want to better utilize descriptive keywords and not just calling it a sword and an axe, because obviously when you look at those weapons, that's no ordinary sword and axe. There's so much more about them. For example, in the case of Avant, it follows his class type, which is a Bladezerker, the mixture of a swordmaster and a berserker, hence the wielding of a sword and an axe. And when you're getting down to the specifics of his axe, I had cracked obsidian axe with a molten core enveloped with red chaos mana, still embodying the lines of the magical mana that's attached to the axe. Runed ornate glowing purple broadsword, or down to the glimpse of what he was wearing within his hands that are dark crimson leather gloves. I'm not just calling them gloves, and I'm not just calling them red gloves, I'm calling them dark crimson leather gloves. Bonus element number 3, that is the color scheme in the palette. The colors associated to the character highlight a big part about his lore and where he exists in the world. He has particularly 3 dominant colors that are black, dark crimson, and violet, also with gold trim attached to some of his armor pieces. When it really comes down to it, nothing looks out of place. We'll get into the specifics of the materials that were used within his overall fit. You can specify the materials that are being utilized on the attire that exists on the character. Are there any leathers that are attached? Is it metallic? What form of these armor pieces that are on this character, if it's a warrior type, that highlights the brutality of what that character does. And remember to dive back into, instead of discussing only about their build, but also discuss the fitting of how the attire fits on the character. And you can be specific with each and every piece. Here's another example that I utilized when I was creating Avant. Avant wears a dark crimson tight-fitted turtleneck with low collar height. The collar is form-fitted to him. Over top of the turtleneck is a well-fitted black peacoat suit jacket combination with purple flame-like accents. Remember, I talked about that layering aspect earlier? This is where it's being highlighted. Second bonus section attached to this, and that is going to be the emotional and visual delivery. When you talk about the mood or the expression of the character, I talked about a composed, confident expression. The mood is one of dark power and impending conflict and transformation. Not just stating that he's confident, but also providing a basis as to what the lore could be about. When it came to the visual quality, I wanted it to have high detail, I wanted it to look modern, and I wanted it to be a near cinematic-like performance. I don't want any piece of the coloring within the image to look dull. Now let me tell you about how I created the stance that existed with Avant. 3 particular pieces that I used here. Standing in a battle-ready stance as if prepared for war. The axe is resting on the shoulder of one arm, meanwhile the other arm is holding a sword level across the body. So that's how you get that dual-wielding fighter stance. I will say, as soon as you start implementing more than one weapon, it really starts to get hard for AI to start generating that. But as long as you are patient and you continue to embrace this part more than one time within your prompt, sooner or later it will start generating it consistently. The final bonus element that I'm providing here, and that was diving back to the background that I had created for Avant. Avant is a prince of the Chaos Realms, therefore I highlighted within his prompt, for example, a red, fog-like or smoky dark background that seems to emanate from the ground, framing the character and emphasizing his dark nature. And that reaches the end of this document here. There's a lot of information to grasp here, and this is going to be another document that I will put into the description of this video that you will be able to go ahead and utilize for yourselves when developing a character that you want to go ahead and showcase for anybody to see. I really do hope after going through this activity that as I was providing you all of the elements that have best suited for me to go ahead and create these characters, I then went ahead and provided you actual implementations of what I utilized to create the characters that you have seen on this channel. And if you missed that video, I definitely want you to go ahead and watch that YouTube short that I had. It was about 2.5 minutes long of a 4-character showcase to some of the characters that are within the AveyaZ lore story. So now's the time for you to go ahead and experiment with yourself. But now you have the proper training to go ahead and utilize this information and put it to good use. Sooner or later, I hope to see the examples that you get to showcase as well. I think that would be really cool, because not only does it continue to give me more ideas on characters to create, but also I would love to see what my community is going to bring up within their own lives as well. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Aveya. This is AveyaZ, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay tuned for more. Oh man, I have to admit, music playing, it helps so much. Oh yeah, oh, that's what I'm talking about.